Hey, how's it going?
I am Mac. I am a health and fitness coach. I have been a coach since, let's say, officially probably like 2020, but was kind of dabbling in it since 2019. So this is kind of my bread and butter, what I do. It's what I love to do. And I've been in this space a long time. I've helped people of all ages, men, women, old, young, kind of just across the board. Right now, my niche is primarily women. So I do still work with men, but mostly my roster is women, whether they are just like a fat loss client, whether they're in need of a reverse diet, whether they have anything gut or hormonal going on. I am kind of their right hand woman for that.
So, let's open up with this. If someone is stuck in a plateau right now, what is probably actually going on? Because I mean, we hear it all the time as coaches, the people that say like, I do X, Y, and Z and nothing works. What is uh the solution or the situation that they're in that you see the most?
Well, there's so many things that could be going on. The honestly, the most frequent thing that I see is that somebody thinks that they're on track, but they're actually not. That's the most common thing that I see. And I'll go into some other variables too. The most common thing is like they're like, I kind of track my food, but like I should be seeing progress, but like actually, how are their weekends looking? Are they taking food off of their like daughter's plate? Are you like having bites while you're making dinner? Are you like not tracking alcohol? Are you taking the weekends for a free for all? And then when you hire a coach, you realize like, oh, okay, there's several things that I'm not monitoring and not being aware of. And then once you get those things in a line, you're like, okay, actually, I'm not in a plateau. I just wasn't following as much of a plan as I thought I was, kind of thing. And then that's when maybe their calories, let's say, they set their calories to 1,500 calories, but on the weekend, they're not tracking. So actually, their average is like
Right.
2,000 calories for the week. They're thereby not in a deficit, so they're not going to see progress. When they start coaching, they're actually like honed in on things. So then they see progress. That's one
Especially
component.
with like, I find it a lot with like sauces, like we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. Like, I got some new sauces and was like, oh, 0 calories, 10 calories, but it goes based off of like 5 milliliters.
Hmm.
So you really have to like pay attention nowadays because they're like actively trying to trick you, essentially.
Exactly. And depending like how flexible their metabolic rate is, like even if they're in like they're going over their calories, they're allotted like deficit calories by like 100 calories, that could be enough to take them out for the week. And they're kind of just at the low end of maintenance now. So, another thing too, especially with women, I find is they think they're in a plateau, but they're actually just not seeing progress to the caliber that they think they should be. Like the scale will be trending down, progress photos will be improving, waist measurements are improving, but they're like, I'm not seeing progress. And I'm like, wait. Let's zoom out and look at your trend over the last 3 months. We are, but I think a lot of people kind of get in the weeds a little bit because they see themselves every single day in the mirror and they're like, I look the same, I look the same, I look the same. But when you zoom out, you're like, oh, I have seen progress over the span of these last 6 months or even like 6 weeks. And I think obviously we're our own worst critic too, but sometimes you're not even in a plateau if you think you're in a plateau, essentially. You could be seeing progress and you just have to kind of manage your expectations for that progress. And that's a whole other thing as well. Like you can't have everything and good progress. So, like, let's say you really don't want to sacrifice this like 2 week vacation.
Or even
You
like
can't
ice
expect to
cream or
go on the
pizza
2
or
week
something.
vacation, go balls to the walls, and then come back and be like, oh, like I retained all of my progress. Everything's fine and dandy. Like there's going to be some sort of trade off. I think sometimes people don't really realize that.
Absolutely. And I do want to say, obviously, we're, you know, fairly new acquaintances, which
Hmm.
is awesome considering, the stuff we're talking about right now. Won't go into too much detail there, but before we get into like reverse dieting and hormones, you're one of the only coaches I know that really like walks the walk with your clients. So what's your real mission when it comes to coaching people through fat loss? Because that realistically is, as coaches, it's one of the easiest things for us to be like, helping people lose 5, 10 pounds is like the easy part,
Hmm.
but that's not always the case. So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it also goes, take my clients through, it's not just like about their physique. And I find that it goes so much deeper. Like, okay, you want to lose these 5 to 10 pounds. You want to be leaner for what? Is that to be healthier, or does it go deeper than that? Has somebody like talked badly to you about your body? Do you feel like you're going to be more valuable to like men, women because of your body? Do you feel like you're going to carry yourself differently? Do you feel like you're going to have better job opportunities? Like, how deep rooted is this? And if you even get to that goal, is that going to make you satisfied? Because I've gone through this so many times. This has happened to myself too. Like, you get super lean, you attach your goal or you attack your goal, and then you're still not satisfied. And you're like, okay, this is like where I thought I was going to be happy. This is where I thought that everything would kind of come together. And you're still hungry for more. And you're like, okay, now what? Like, I don't necessarily want to lose more body fat, but like, I'm still not where I want to be. So I think a lot of it comes down to, especially women, which I'm sure it happens with men too. I've just coached way more women than men.
Right.
They think, okay, I'll lose this weight and I'll be happy. I'll lose this weight and I will be pretty. I'll lose this weight and men will want to be with me. And it really comes down to like, if you aren't confident in yourself already, no number on the scale, no progress photo is going to help you to feel better. I think that's a hard truth that a lot of people don't want to face.
Yeah, I think, obviously being healthier directly makes you more confident because you just feel better. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
100%.
Having more energy, all of that. But I agree. I think oftentimes the psychological aspect of it takes a much larger role than people are willing to admit. And I think nowadays it's almost switched. I've started to notice online, like it was kind of a trend for a while of like people were going to the gym to like fight their demons kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now it seems like people are like almost talking against that, which I get
Yeah.
to an
I
extent, but at
also
the
think
same time, it's like there are
have
people that use, yeah,
you can have both
exactly.
at the same
I
time.
agree.
I think you can do both. You can go to be like, the gym is my therapy, but also still be working on your self-worth in other ways
And you might
instead of
also actually
changing your
need
physique.
therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Like the gym can be your therapy, but also seeing a therapist or whatever modality that looks like for you.
Right.
So I just think a lot of people have a goal, and the goal is great, awesome, perfect, but it's actually a lot deeper rooted than that, especially when you get to that goal and you still feel the same or
And I do notice in men, it is similar, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's opposite in the
Mm,
sense of like when they come to me, they're like, I don't really I think I have a lot of fat to lose. And I'm like, I don't know how to break this to you, pal.
that's a
But
whole other
like,
can of worms because
yeah, because it's
people
like
will
you're
often be
not
like, I
looking at
think I want to
losing.
lose 5 to 10 pounds. I'm like, okay, that's really not going to make a difference. I mean, it is, but that's not going to get you to where you think it is.
Right. And because a lot of people, that's water weight. That's just,
Yeah.
you know, that can happen in a couple days,
Hmm.
um, fairly easily too. So I do run into that. So I will say, like, I had this woman, I'm referring to my notes here, but she comes to me eating, like 1,100 calories, maybe. And she has a coach who, or a coach, I'll say, because she supposedly has, I haven't seen blood work or anything, but she has like thyroid condition. She is overweight, and her coach has her on like a very restricted calorie program and is very restrictive with foods and all this stuff. And I'm just like, that's not like get away from that coach. And because I said, I was like, look, I'm not knowledgeable enough to fix that right now, but I have people that are
Hmm.
knowledgeable enough to fix that. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I feel like coaches nowadays, especially, there's such a, I don't even know, like a pressure to be the best and know
And like
everything. And
be
it's
able to
like,
serve everyone, but it's
yeah, that's
more
just not,
respectable for you to say, I can't tackle this. There's things that I
yeah,
can't tackle, or people that I can't work with if we just don't jive and my strategy doesn't work well for them. Then there's someone else out there for them, and it's just not me. And that's fine because there's
yeah.
hundreds of people out there that are for me.
And I don't know about you, but I start my consultations like that. Like, I'm like, hey,
Hmm.
if for whatever reason this isn't right, that's totally fine. A no is not going to hurt my feelings. And if we're just not the right fit, like, I will help you find someone that is.
Yeah, that's another thing that's not talked about in coaching too, especially with women, which men could be the same too. I feel like they are too passive in the sense like if something isn't going the way that they want it to, or they want you to communicate in a different fashion, they would benefit from a different coaching strategy. They just don't say anything and are unhappy without me knowing at all. Like it's it's something that needs to be communicated. And I think a lot of women worry, like, I don't want to hurt her feelings. I don't want her to think that we aren't a good fit because I can always mesh. And that's like a trait of being a good coach. I have many different coaching strategies because maybe someone really needs some like tough love. And I'm like, we need to get your ass in gear. You're not doing anything. But that doesn't work for some people. Some people that makes them
Yeah, and
want to do
it's
less.
yeah, and sometimes it's hard to tell if they are that type of person
Hmm.
if you haven't been getting feedback from them.
Exactly.
So we're like shooting in the dark here to find out what coaching trick or psychology trick is going to get them to commit to themselves, really.
Exactly. So it helps so much to know my clients on a personal level. Like, what do you do for work? Like, what are your interests outside of the gym? Even if you even are interested in going to the gym. Because I have some people who are
Yeah.
like, I don't really like going. I'm like, that's fine. It doesn't mean we have to go 5 days a week or like we can do other modalities of exercise. If you like yoga, let's do it. It doesn't have to be just strength training. Obviously, there's like huge benefits to strength training, but if someone doesn't like lifting, I'm not going to have that be their sole exercise.
I completely agree. It's because
Because
it's the same as
after
like
we're
with
done working
dieting.
together, then what?
Exactly. They're gonna fall right off. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Because it's like the same with dieting. The best diet is one that you'll stick to. It's the same for a workout program. The best one is one that you can stick to. Because sometimes they're not all that exciting. And I think
Yeah.
some people are looking for something else. I don't know exactly what it is people are looking for. I don't think they know all the time either.
Especially with social media too. There's so many people that are like, this glute exercise, this tricep exercise, when really like just get really good at the basics. They're basics for
Absolutely,
a
especially like
reason.
compound movements.
Yeah.
I think that when I see, the new lifters in the gym who are trying to clearly put on size are starting from a more lean, lanky, whatever the politically correct term is going to be, real skinny spot, and they're doing like isolation movements, and it's like you don't you're so far from having to worry about that. Like
Hmm.
you could literally show up and do squat, deadlift, bench, and grow.
Yeah. But then the science-based gurus are going to say, you don't need a deadlift. You don't need a bench. You should do a clavicular fly to grow your upper chest. And like, yeah, but does this 13-year-old boy even know how to do a flat press? Does he even know how to engage his chest at all?
Hip or hinge at his hips. I feel like that's one of the most difficult things to teach too.
Yeah.
If they don't get it off of the first, like, push the door closed with your butt kind of like
Hmm.
trick. Because it is kind of awkward if it's not a movement you do.
It is. It is. And I feel like it's one of those movements where like once it clicks and you can hinge all day long, but so many people will squat it instead of like pushing their hips back. They kind of like bend at the knee.
Yep.
So it's definitely a challenge to teach hinge for sure. But like I said, once it clicks, the client's kind of like, I feel like
Right.
so many exercises are like that.
I agree. It really is about like, I feel like once you get that mind muscle connection, like even just recently, I'm still finding exactly what
Hmm.
targets my chest the way I want it to. Dumbbells is definitely a big thing as far as that goes, as far as like actually engaging the muscles. But I'm one of those people that like activating my chest properly is difficult.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of women comes to me with that. Of course, they want to grow their glutes, grow their glutes, grow their glutes, and they'll be like, "I can't feel them," and I'm like, "That's because we have no muscle, so there's nothing really to feel." Like you may have body fat, and obviously you have a muscle, but we need to grow that muscle, and then thereby we'll be able to feel it better. So I think some people, especially if they follow a lot of bodybuilders who are all about like feeling it, feeling it, feeling it, if they're coming from a really beginner stage, you're probably not going to feel all that much. And that's okay. As long as the execution is good, we're still going to be targeting that muscle, and we'll get to the kind of feel of it as you progress.
Right. I agree. But so to bring it back a little bit, what is reverse dieting and why do most people need it before a fat loss phase?
Yeah, so even if someone didn't like need it, and I'll get into that in a second. I still think it's great before you like just dive right into a fat loss phase. Get yourself to like maintenance calories, feel it out, get used to tracking. Like I would never recommend someone to just be like, "Okay, I calculated my deficit calories at 1400, so I'm going to start there." If you've had no prior tracking experience, like start at your maintenance calories, get used to tracking, see what it feels like to eat that amount, and you'll realize like, okay, this feels way more than I usually eat, or this feels way less than I usually eat. But reverse dieting is essentially going to be the opposite of going into a fat loss phase. So let's say somebody comes to me, they do a trial week of macros. All of my clients do a trial week of macros. So basically, I can just see like, how does your eating look like on a day to day without considering like, I'm starting this new program. I'm going to go buy a bunch of salads from the store. I'm going to like start a new thing. I just want to see like what your life looks like day in and day out, which I think a lot of people struggle with because some people think like, oh, Mac's going to judge me for having this Ben and Jerry's, but like Ben and Jerry's is great. If you're eating it, let me see. I want to know because it's only going to benefit the client. So if the accurate it is. So let's say somebody calculates their macros on one of the macro calculation sites. It says their deficit is 1,400 calories. They do their trial week and they're eating 1,100 calories. Everything tracked accurately. They're tracking the weekends. They're not having like bites, licks, tastes, tracking incorrectly. So then that begs the question, okay, I'm eating way under my perceived deficit calories, but I'm not seeing any progress. So like, what's going on here? So yes, 1,400 should be a deficit in theory if you were eating at your, let's say, 1,900 maintenance calories. But since you've been at that 1,100 calories, your metabolic rate is going to downregulate. So now that 1,100 calories is actually your maintenance. In order to get into a deficit from there, we would need to push lower, 900, 800, 700, which obviously is not a great thing for any facet of being a human. And your quality of life's not going to be very good. Nothing's going good. And then you're going to get to a spot there where you stop responding as well. So then you're getting into really, really not good territory if you're dropping lower than that. So essentially, a
What
reverse
are
diet is go ahead.
what are some signs that somebody's metabolism is like wrecked, basically? Because
Yeah.
if you're supposed to be close to 2,000 calories and you're running into 1,400 calories and you feel full, and then these people are still looking to burn fat. So like it makes sense why they would be confused as to why they're in that situation.
Yeah. So I would say hunger, but in a lot of these cases, they're usually not hungry at all because their metabolic rate is so thrashed. They're just like, I just eat like once in the day just because like my family's having dinner. So they don't really have hunger cues. I mean, you can have hunger cues and like food focus, thinking about like food all the time if you're consciously keeping your calories low. If it's just kind of like lifestyle, like I see this a lot with people who are like very busy with work, they don't have time to eat, they like have a busy life and like food just isn't really on their mind. So thereby their calorie intake is very, very low. They don't really feel much hunger. Maybe these people on the weekend will like go a little bit crazy on the weekend, but during the week, their intake is very, very low. As far as other symptoms, obviously energy is going to be thrashed. You don't have like any energy input coming in. So that's going to be thrashed. But it's hard to even pinpoint that because they've probably been feeling this way for years. So they just think it feels normal. So if you
I
ask
was just
them,
gonna say their
how's your energy?
perception of it is all over the place.
Exactly. So if you ask them, how's your energy? They'll probably say, it's fine, but they don't know what optimized energy feels like. Once I get them started reversing, they're like, okay, like I am feeling a lot better. Like I actually have energy. I can like have a full-fledged conversation without feeling exhausted. I'm like not as snappy with my partner. I'm not as snappy with my kids. So definitely like mood disturbances for sure. Think like hangry, but like constant. And then you just kind of like associate with yourself with like, I'm hangry. I'm a hangry person all of the time.
It becomes your new
Um,
baseline.
yeah, it's basically your baseline. So for like premenopausal women, definitely like menstrual irregularities, lack of ovulation, just kind of overall shutdown of sex hormones. If you pull labs, for sure, low testosterone. That is really, really impacted by dieting. I mean, for men as well. But with women, since we already have so much less androgen circulating, it's not our body's priority at all. So that's usually the
And
first to go, the first to kind of like peace out because we
And then
don't
do you run into
need it
that
as
when you
much
have
as
to
you
try
guys.
to, you don't need as much. I will
Exactly.
say that it plays just as important of a role,
100%.
but I absolutely get what you're saying. And how often is it that you run into women who are like, why would I need testosterone? What do you mean? Like,
All of the time. And I would say 9 out of 10 lab reviews I do, testosterone is tanked. Like free test, like 0.2. Total test like
Progesterone's
7.
probably
And the
down too.
crazy thing is that's usually in reference range, which is
And
just a
men run
whole
into
other
that
can
all
of
the time.
worms.
Yeah, men run into that. Well, that's I told you before I got out of the Marine Corps when I got my own labs done. I was in like the 200s, like low 200s, and I completely blame chow hall food. Anyone from the military that sees this is going to be like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
I
Because
would
yeah,
also
I was in the
say,
low 200s as like a in shape like 20 something year old male Marine, and I'm like I do not feel like I should, but they
yeah,
still couldn't give me anything because it was in the lower end of the
so
reference range.
crazy.
And I've
That is
now
so
gotten my own testosterone back up into the mid to high 400s.
I feel like that's a huge bounce back.
Yeah,
That's a
a big
huge
part of
bounce
that
back.
was definitely the fat loss, but
Yeah. Yeah. I do also wonder, especially for those in the military or that work any type of high stress job, any type of high stress environment, or even like swing shift, night shift, anything like that. If sleep is changing a lot or lots of nights with low sleep, the impact on testosterone from that as well.
I would be curious in seeing more. I'm actually gonna look that up
Because
if you haven't taken a
sleep
note
and
on that already,
recovery and
because
like being sure you
yeah,
have enough
it's huge.
energy
It's 90%
availability.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all of it. So that would make sense. And then I mean, it's a regular thing in the military to stand a 24-hour watch, and then go to work the next day. So, you know, running on 36 hours of no sleep
Hmm.
and then
And the
eating
food component.
super processed food. We didn't even we like 90% of the time you don't know what it is. Like you just
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, it's somehow overcooked and still frozen.
That's coming from my niche. I think that the pipeline of like low test comes from one, extremely high estrogen across the board, extremely high estrogen, whether that's exposure from hormonal birth control, like plastics, like estrogens and like cleaning supplies and like fabrics. It's just like everywhere, which the dose makes the poison. We need estrogen too, and men need estrogen too. But when we're having it exposed in all of these different facets, that's when it becomes an issue. And then when your body's not detoxing that properly, that's when it becomes a bigger issue. So most people's bodies, once again, some people have low estrogen. So I'm not talking to those people. And that's another qualm I have with people just openly taking supplementation, hormone balancing supplementation. Like if you are premenopausal and your estrogen is on the decline, we shouldn't be taking DIM. We don't want estrogen to continue
Right.
getting
Because it's
modulated in
wrong.
that way. So what I was saying is I think the low test kind of pipeline with my niche is due to that, but also like hormonal birth control 100%.
It's
Maybe I'll get
huge.
some flack for that, but it's really just the truth.
I
And I
try
think
to tell
that's
people all the time. I say it all the time. Like hormonal birth control is poison, and I get like one of two responses, which usually involve either you're a guy, shut up, or B, which I mean is like understandable to an extent.
mhm.
You know what I mean? But then the other one is just that they can't survive without it because of how difficult their life is
Yeah.
when they
Yeah.
aren't on it, which
And the
again
thing
comes down to a
is like
different
if
solution.
you are feeling that way in the sense that you need to rely on hormonal birth control to suppress your endocrine system,
You've
we
got
need to
something
figure out
else
what's
going on.
actually going on because you're not meant to live like that.
Yep.
There's something else going on. So sure, the hormonal birth control may help, it may make it worse.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen so many times. Clients try a new birth control and they start holding all this water. They start having like continuous bleeding. They start having acne. They have start having all of these symptoms, but like maybe their period pain is gone or their like PMDD is gone, but something else comes up. So like once again, it's a trade-off. But the thing that my biggest qualm with it is I don't have an issue if anyone takes it. If you want to take it, that's completely fine. I've never told a client like, let's get off. That's a personal choice. But nobody educates them on what it's doing. So they're like, why would I get off?
I also think they don't know what their options are because they've never really been given one. As soon as they were old enough to have a cycle, so many women were just immediately put on birth control.
Yeah, I was one of them and I still deal with side effects. So
And that's a
yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. Because I've ran into it before where someone got a new doctor, a new primary, and they were like, "Hey, I need like my birth control re-upped," and they were like, "Okay, like, what have you been taking?" And I can't remember what the medication was for the life of me, but uh, the doctor essentially wound up telling them like, "Hey, you're not supposed to be on that like long term. Like, that's not supposed to be a long term
Mhm.
birth control." And they had been on it for years because whatever doctor prescribed it just
Kept
let
feeling
it
it,
keep
kept
going.
feeling it, kept
Yeah,
feeling it. Yeah. Yeah.
signed off on it.
Yeah,
So
it's like
that's
so many women don't have, and this isn't their fault. I do think, like, you should take autonomy and, like, learn on your own, but I do think that most women don't even have a baseline understanding of, like, a menstrual cycle and, like, "Okay, I can only really get pregnant, like, during these specific days." It's not, like, constant. Of course, there's always gonna be some sort of risk. There's some sort of risk with being on any form of birth control as well, or any contraceptive. So, I just think the biggest thing is education, and I love educating my clients on that so much because as, like, I mean, even as a man, it's empowering to have any knowledge, but, like, especially knowledge about your own body and understand, like, "Oh, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way," or, "This is why I'm feeling a little bit sad today." And just being in tune with your own body and own hormonal fluctuations.
and I think that's a big part of why as like a man it's hard to give that kind of advice.
Mhm.
Especially trying to make it in a way that's like, hey, I really do just want to see like you
Right.
be as healthy as possible and you really are being poisoned and not just me mansplaining to them.
Not sounding
Because
like some, like, paranoid veteran who, like, hates the government.
I'm not one of those guys.
Yeah. I could totally see that, like, some women, especially with based off of their relationship with men in their past, whether that's their father, uncles, boyfriends, friends, whatever, being like which also this isn't fair to you, but it's just a preconceived notion in their head, like, "Okay, this guy is just trying to, like, be a know-it-all or tell me about my experience," when I mean, I know you wouldn't do that. But I feel like
Which I
some
mean,
people are just
I know plenty of people like that. Those
I mean,
people
I
do
do too.
exist.
I do too, and so many people, men and women, that are just like in this example, it would be men, but will not be wrong even if they are wrong. They won't admit their faults, so I could
Oh,
see a
never.
lot of people being like, you're just kinda speaking out of your ass."
And that is kind of the result I get, or it comes back to the dependency a lot of times. It's just that, like, they know what their cycle is like and what their
Yeah,
life is like when they're
exactly.
on their cycle, when they don't have the birth control. And they're like, I don't really care what it's doing in my body right now because I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, and I do understand that to some extent, like, the less I know, the better. It's fine, but it also makes me sad thinking about right now it's fine, but what if one day you, like, meet the love of your life, you wanna have a child and your fertility's, like, nowhere because you shut your
Yeah.
endocrine system down when you were 12.
As a guy, my ignorance comes into play quite often. I forget like how young you guys are exposed to external hormones.
Mhm. I think
And then there's the whole, go ahead.
I started when I my mom had me go to the doctor when I got my first and I don't blame my mom for this whatsoever because there's no education, especially back then, like, there was especially none.
Yeah,
Like
even 15 years ago. Like it really
yeah,
isn't a long
so
time ago.
and I got my first, like, high school boyfriend at, like, 13. My mom was like, "We're going to the doctor." I'm like, "Okay." But I was like, "Okay, that's kinda cool." Like, I'm on birth control? Like, it felt kind of
Grown
like
up.
I was a woman. I was not, clearly. But it was kind of just like, okay, I'm, like, stepping into, like, this new phase, and I almost feel like once again, I might get some flack from this, but that's okay. I almost feel like Big Pharma does that on purpose and makes there have some sort of allure to it. To like, I'm stepping into
Absolutely.
this new phase of my life. I have this new objective. I am like now really in womanhood when you're really shutting your womanhood down completely before it's even up and running. So, yeah.
Yeah. The amount of women that could benefit from a little bit of testosterone is insane.
Yeah.
Not that they'll ever listen to that, but All right, let's reel it back in just a little bit. Get back to the gut
Good
health
thing you're reeling it
because
in because
as
I I'm
oh,
not
we
very
can
good
we
at
can ramble. We can ramble. But along with like birth control, hormones, obviously your hormones are regulated in your gut.
that.
We say obviously, that's not obvious to everybody. So if your gut is inflamed, your stress is high, your hormones are off, fat loss is the last thing your body wants to do.
Exactly.
It's trying to
Exactly.
protect you. So
Even if your
guts
body is in the most healthy state, like thyroid's awesome, gut's awesome, your body still doesn't want to lose body fat. It is comfortable where it's at. So it's all, I mean, obviously this is individual dependent. Some people struggle to keep their weight up. Some people struggle with like it going up on its own and they're like, I haven't done anything and it's going up. But all that to say, like, no matter who you are, your body wants to be at some sort of homeostasis. So
yes.
it's going to be a struggle in either direction. If you want to gain, if you want to lose, it's going to feel like a task. And it is a task because your body wants to just keep you safe. And if you're losing body weight, that could mean we're in a famine, which once again, that would be why your metabolic rate down regulates. It picks up on, okay, we don't have any food, so we need to conserve everything, burn less calories, move less, all of that.
Because realistically, the ease of access to food that we have is so recent. Like
Mm,
so recent. Because even we think like, oh well, we've had like the industrial age and all these things. Like even that's like compared to now is nothing.
no.
So like our
Food is so
bodies have no idea what we're
hypercalorically,
doing right now.
yeah. Food is so hypercalorically dense, it's almost scary how many calories can be packed in something like this big. It's it's just crazy. Like, if somebody from, like, the 1700s saw that, they'd probably, like, just die on the spot. I don't know. I don't know
Well,
what would
because it's
happen.
usually I would say it's never a one ingredient food. It's never something that grew out of the ground or that had a mom and dad. You know what I mean?
No, no.
But so gut stuff is trendy right now, especially with all of the teas and the shilajit and anything else you can buy on TikTok. But what's the real problem you think when someone says like I bloat after every meal?
I think there's obviously so many things it could be, but
I know, because
the
with low
biggest
stomach
thing
acid, stress,
yeah,
antibiotics, too
the
many fake
biggest thing that
ingredients,
I find, to be honest, there could be nothing going wrong. Are you eating your meal way too fast and getting a bunch of air in? Are you stressed to the nines? Are you like sitting on your phone, like eating? That could easily be the cause of your bloating. There
or
could
are
just be
you
nothing else.
not able to hold that much food because you are only eating like once or twice a day because you're like, oh, every time I eat,
Exactly.
I bloat. And then I run into that with people who are like, oh, I can't eat in the morning. And it's like,
Yeah, I get
but
that
you can,
all of
but you
the
can, you
time.
can, you can,
I get that
you can.
all of the time, and women love to fast.
Mm-hmm.
And there's hardly any research on women and fasting. But we
Well,
need
even
to
with,
eat in the morning so our cortisol is going to spike in the morning. If you're not eating, it's just going to stay ramped. It's going to just stay ramped until you eat. So we need to be eating in the morning. Maybe that is where breakfast is the most important meal of the day came from. I don't know. That's
well, that's funny
I'm going to
though,
just say
because
it is.
then when we look at what is a breakfast food, everything people think of is either a carb or a sugar,
Right, and
which
there's
is
no
I
protein.
not
I
to.
mean, okay, sure, maybe 7 grams of protein from an egg, but
Yeah, you're not eating
7
six
grams of
eggs.
protein's not doing it. 14 grams of protein's not doing it. You need at least 20 grams of protein in a meal, and that's low.
And that's for men and women.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think
very low.
that's like yeah, that's the really the baseline for how much protein you should have anytime you eat. Because I
If
think
you're
that's
eating
something
something and
else.
there's not 20 grams of protein in it, I don't
Oh
count that
yeah.
as a meal.
No, but it's
That's
also
just
so
not a
then you
meal.
shouldn't have eaten it, in my opinion. I'm gonna get flack for this one.
That's okay.
I'm very anti snacks.
I am also very anti-snack.
I'm so glad you said that because so many
Yeah.
people are like, I eat throughout the day, and it's like, okay, but like, what are we talking about? Like four smaller meals, so you're still eating 400 or 500 calories a meal, or are you talking like you literally just like
Or you just
pick
kind of like
like
have a bowl of
almonds
peanuts
and
next to you and pick it up
yeah,
whenever.
because then your body is never truly in like a parasympathetic state
Yeah, exactly.
because you're just constantly
And your
turn like your body
digestive
is
tract never
yeah,
gets a break. There's never a time where they're like, the
exactly.
little men in your stomach are like, okay, we can hang out for a little bit. Like your stomach needs to have intervals. I know Justin talks about this a lot too with the migrating motor
Mhm.
complex. So it's like think of it like I'm gonna say like a Zamboni on like a hockey rink. Like he comes through, he sweeps everything out. But if he's sweeping everything out and you're having more come in, he's like missing all of this. You need to wait till he like does his round and then you have a clean slate. You have a clean rink.
Like that. I haven't heard that one from him yet. I
I
like
just
that
made that
one.
up on the spot.
Oh, okay, that's even
No, I
better.
just was like, okay, what could it be similar to?
But so like what it really comes down to is you might not even have like GI or gut issues. You might just your body might be overwhelmed and your healthy habits of snacking throughout the day because that's what we were supposed
Or
to do.
not eating breakfast, intermittent
Yeah.
fasting.
But that's a big one, intermittent like all these trigger words, I swear. All right, so some real advice for the struggling listener. If someone is listening right now and feels like they have tried everything, what do they actually do next?
Hey, if
What
you
would
feel like
you
you've tried
recommend?
everything, one, hire me. Two, if you don't want to do that, that's fine and I understand. Two, what you're going to do is you're going to get a food scale. If you've tried everything, you probably have a food scale. If you do not, then you haven't tried everything, but still get the food scale anyway. Get the food scale. Track every single thing that goes into your mouth for at least 1 week. 2 weeks would be awesome. Track it in MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, whatever app you fancy. Anything goes. As long as we're getting some sort of log. See where those calories are at. If you have a fat loss goal, would you feel comfortable dropping 3 to 500 calories from that? If yes, go ahead. We can talk all about macro distribution, food selection, all of that. But if you're just like looking to see some progress, focus on the calories, focus on the protein intake. If you are like very, very high body fat, you might not need 1 gram per pound of body weight. If that's too much for you, you could do 1 gram per goal weight. So if your goal weight is 160 and you're 230, maybe go 160, 170, especially
I
because you
think
might not be used to eating that much protein. So I don't think it's a great idea to go from 70 to 230. Your gut is also not going to be happy with that at all.
no,
So
not at
I would
all.
say track your food. If you do not feel comfortable dropping 3 to 500 calories, you probably need to reverse diet. So this is going to be a little bit more complex because it's not, I think a lot of people think it's a formula. Even fat loss isn't a formula. It's based off of how you respond each week. It's not like, okay, every 2 weeks we're going to make a drop. Every 2 weeks we're going to add in cardio. I think a lot of people think that, or like with reversing, okay, every 2 weeks we add 50 calories. Sure, you can have some baseline numbers, but it's really just dependent upon how the person responds. And that is really the value of working with a coach, somebody overseeing and actually seeing how you respond, especially because a lot of people can get so in their head. The scale is up one day, I'm gaining body fat, I'm done, I'm dropping my calories.
And I mean, honestly, even as like someone who wants to compete, professionally in bodybuilding and everything, I am a coach who had to get a coach. And I feel like people who aren't in our space don't see that as normal.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
something I get all the time is, well, why do you have a coach if you are a
Mhm.
coach? And
Yeah.
it's for that exact reason. Like you said, people, you get too close to it. And something else Justin says all the time that I love is, you're too close to the trees to see the forest.
Exactly. And that happens all of the time with my clients too. I can see the vision. I'm like, okay, I see where we're going to take you. I can see it loud and clear. Okay, not loud and clear because I can't hear what I see, but I can see it. I can see
That's
it.
all right. I gotcha. But really, it just comes down to it's not about doing more because I run into that a lot with the type A personalities, the military, the veterans, the first responders, the nurses, all of those people. They want to do more because they feel like their results are from them not doing enough,
Mhm.
which is almost never true as far as like output, right?
Exactly. Those people are already doing probably too much.
Yeah. So it's really just, fat loss doesn't fix your life, but, healing your actual health might.
100%.
But
100%. I
so
think it all
before we,
coincides.
Absolutely.
Lose fat, fix
Feel
whatever
better.
your brain is telling you on a day-to-day basis that's not true. Whatever that is. It's gonna be different for everyone.
And I
Work
think
on that.
it's yeah, and I think people need to start being just more open, honestly. Like
Yeah.
just start saying shit. Cause
There's too many things that are taboo that don't need to be taboo.
yeah, like
We could do a
we've
whole
all been
episode
there.
on
We've
this,
all
but,
been through, oh, we so could. That might be the next one.
especially, like, men's mental health. Like, men's mental health doesn't need to be taboo, and it is.
Absolutely.
So
And then it's funny because we talked about this too, but like Memorial Day just passed, and so everyone on social media was all about the military then. And then as soon as
mhm.
the protest thing happened and the Marines got moved, I haven't even actually heard anything about Marines actually being anywhere. All I've seen is that they were in a convoy, but I also haven't looked.
I haven't heard anything in the last couple days either, but I've also just been
So
I haven't
but
really
it's
been looking.
crazy the flip people do. But all right, before we end, because we are 45 minutes in now, what is one unfiltered truth you wish every client knew before they came to you? So without
Only
sugarcoating
way
anything.
I'll do it. The only way you're going to fail is if you give up entirely. No matter how many times you go off track, no matter how many times you have too many shots, no matter how many times you freaking stuff your face in the pantry, like you're not failing. You can do that so many times, but as long as you get back up, you're not going to fail. You will get to your goal. And one day those habits will be not an issue.
I love that. Well, if this hits home for you guys, share this with someone you care about. That's all we ask. That's all either one of us are trying to do here. We just want to make the world a better place.
Yeah, we
That's
just want to
really it.
help. We just want to help.
You got anything else for him, Mac?
No, you'll be hearing from us more. That's what I
Yeah,
got for him.
absolutely. All right, Mac. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
All right, bye.
bye.